Hey y'all, so for this month's tutorial, which is later than it usually is, I'm sorry, but I'm finally going to be using that DIY pop to make Condiment King. That's right, a character that most of you have probably never heard of, and those of you who have, don't really care about him at all. He's a DC comic character, I know, shocker, but he's pretty much just used for comic relief most of the time. And by most of the time, I mean all the time. He's just a guy that comes in. He's a Gotham villain who just comes in, honestly, just to be made a joke of. That's the only time he's ever written in. And if I remember, I will link down below a clip of him from Batman the Animated Series, just so you can, see a little bit more about him in case you've forgotten about that episode. But I am doing it based off his look from the animated series. He's had a couple different looks, compared from the cartoons to the comics, but I'm going with the cartoon. So the very first thing I did, I wanted to go ahead and sculpt the tanks, because he's got two tanks that's strapped to his back, one filled with ketchup, the other one filled with mustard for his guns. Oh, this guy's really, really, really weird. But I wanted to do that with the head still attached. So I make sure not to make them too high so that the head won't go on afterward. After that, I kind of just decided to go ahead and keep the head on for the entire project. And I would say that was a little bit of a mistake. I should have went ahead and taken the head off after I finished the tanks, but oh well. But anyway, for this part, I am using polymer clay, just making two almost identical pieces of cylinder, pretty much, and shaping them together and putting it on his back, taking it off, and then placing it in the oven according to the package's instructions. I use Sculpey clay just as a personal preference, but you can use any kind of polymer clay or even air dry clay if you wanted to for this project. I don't think it would matter too much, but I just like using polymer clay, so that's what I used. Very quickly, I did take two small balls of polymer clay and use the liquid Sculpey to attach them in order for them to adhere together when baking, just to make that little dial that's on the top of the tanks. When those tanks were in the oven, I decided to start painting the face because I had an idea at the beginning of this project, a plan that would have required me to paint the face first. So I went ahead and did it, but then the plans changed, but really it doesn't matter, the face would have to be painted at one point or another. But yeah, I did have a reason to paint the face first before doing anything else, and we'll circle back around that in just a second. So the initial plan was to make the sunglasses for Condiment King and attach it to his face first before painting the rest. I ended up waiting till the very end of the project to put the glasses on, but yeah, I would have to have the face painted first so that I could stick the shades on before painting the rest, but that's why the face got painted before anything else. But here you can see I got some more polymer clay out, rolled it evenly with the help of my toothpicks, used the smallest circle cookie or clay cutter that I had in order to create the two circles for the lenses, and then I just took a very, very small strip of black clay to make the connector piece. I wear glasses and I don't even know what the name for that is called, but the little connector between the two lenses for it. And real quick, I did not do this right. Just saying that right now, I did not do this right. I got the size of it right, but it didn't ended up looking right at the end. One of my mistakes was I should have printed off a smaller circle or try to find something that's a slightly smaller circle than the cutter was, just so I wouldn't have to do it freehand, because cutting something freehand doesn't usually work out for me all that well, and perfect circles are definitely an out. So I did try to cut out as perfect of a circle as I could for the lenses to go, but yeah, it didn't work. It was very, very uneven, let's just put it that way. And me handling it made the outer circle uneven as well, so even though you can see I'm really trying to get the best shape possible, I did not. It looks really weird, but if you guys do try doing this, make sure to put it on the pop for size reference. You do not want to make the glasses too long or too short, otherwise it'll just look more ridiculous than it already does. So after I did the size and I finally got the length of the connector piece right, you can see I'm kind of redoing it right there. I put it all together with Super Sculpey and put it back in the oven for whatever your package said. The Sculpey that I'm working with is 275 degrees for 15 minutes, and usually that's about right. Sometimes you have to lengthen it depending on what type of clay, so again, just read your package's instructions. So now I'm switching from polymer clay to Suguru, because Suguru is an air dry rubber. I've used it before. Whenever you're working on something that you have to have pretty much molded directly onto the pop, you have to use something air dry, because pops can't be put in the oven. They will turn into just a big puddle of plastic. So you need something air dry. A lot of people use air dry clay, and that's perfectly fine. I just have Suguru on hand. I probably, as soon as I run out of it, I probably won't use it again. I'll probably just invest in some air dry clay. It depends on what you're working on. Sometimes air dry clay is good. A lot of times it depends on the brand. But yeah, I'm still thinking about it, because this stuff is very finicky when it comes to temperature. Mine was actually pretty sticky due to the humidity that we've had recently, so yeah, and I was sculpting this back when we were having the heat wave a couple months ago, so yeah, not that easy to work with this stuff during those periods. But I used Suguru to create, as you saw, the straps on the tank right there, just making long snakes and connecting them with my tools. Next, I used it to create the little sauce packets that he has on both of his sleeves. The actual picture has 4 per sleeve. I just put 2 because it's small. So I made little rectangles out of the Suguru, and then I used my pliers to actually just pinch down on both sides to create those little crinkles, the seal that you see on either side of sauce packets. It actually took me a while to think of this. I was trying to make it with my toothpick or my X-Acto knife, and then I just happened to look over at my pliers. I'm like, that would make the perfect indention. So I just made that and stuck it on the sleeve. Again, 2 on each sleeve. Next, I made 2 cylinders that I put on top of both of his hands, and just made a small cone in order to put on top of, or on the end of each cylinder, to create his ketchup and mustard guns. And yes, I know it looks horrible right now, but after Suguru cures, which takes about a day, it's still a little bit malleable. You can shave it, you can cut it to your exact preference, you can shave it. So I just let this cure overnight, and then I just trimmed the ends to make it more realistic, and I did this for both the mustard and the ketchup bottles. Then I made a small little button at the top of his head. His mask is supposed to be like a pickle, so this is supposed to be like the cut off stem of a pickle at the very top of his head. I just kind of blended it on there, patted it down, and then used my toothpick to make the little indentions at the very top of it. And I tried, as you can see right there, to smooth it down a little bit just to keep it on there more securely after it cures. But yeah, this stuff can come off. If you rip any of this stuff off, it'll come off very easily, but as long as you don't mess with it, it will adhere to the plastic. And connected one end to the back side of his hand and the other one to the bottom of the tanks on his back, in order to create the hose that would connect the tanks to the squirt guns. So this was something new for me, using resin in a pop custom, and I was actually really excited to do it. So I wanted to make actual lenses for the sunglasses. So you can see I have it. I have the glasses after it's been fully baked and cooled on the back of a silicone mold. So I know it's hard to tell whether it's right side up or not, but it is the back side of that mold just to create a safe place where I can, peel the resin off afterwards. This is UV resin that I'm using here. I just put a small bit in my mixing cup and a little bit of black pigment, and you can see I'm kind of pressing down. The thing isn't quite even. The clay is not even because I baked it on tin foil, which didn't lay perfectly flat. I should have made it a larger pan that I put it in, but I didn't. So it's not quite even, but as you can see, I'm holding it down, trying to make it as even as possible so that it don't leak from the crevices, and using that little silicone spoon to put it around, and then curing it with my UV light. Now, sometimes when you cure with UV light, it doesn't cure evenly. Sometimes little pockets form, and I'm not really sure why. I mean, I know when you do it on glass or anything, I'm working on something right now that I am not filming, but it's on glass and the resin separates from the glass as it cures. And sometimes those pockets just happen. I don't know why, but they do. But as you can see, the UV resin cures extremely fast, and that's me trying to fix one of the little pockets that formed while I was doing it. And when you go back and try to patch it, it just makes it more uneven. And yeah, and I didn't mix up enough resin for the first batch, and yeah, I'm still just trying to fix it and it's not working. But I had to make up another batch of resin for the second lens. It ended up being a little bit darker than the first, so it's definitely not perfect at all, but it is a very good first attempt, and as long as you're looking at the pop from a distance after it's done, it still looks pretty darn good. So, and I think part of the problem was I was using this crystal resin. It's a little bit thicker, and I'm wondering if that was the problem. I don't know, but anyway, it worked for now. After a full day, the sugru is finally cured, and I can start painting the figure, which is my favorite part because to me it's the most relaxing part. If you want to make it look more professional, I've said this before, water down your acrylic paint. That way it'll just look a lot better in the end. You'll have to put more time into it because it'll take a lot more layers to get it opaque and, looking pretty, but other than that, that is the more professional way to do it. And you will see later on that I changed the shape of the face by making the mask go around more of it. Like from the way I have the face painted now, you couldn't see the mask very well if you look at it right up front. So I made the mask go down over his face more just by painting the green over it. Now, remember when I said earlier that I made a mistake about not taking the head off? Yeah, there were a lot of cracks and crevices created from the tank and the straps and just everything on this thing, so I could not get my brushes, even my tiniest ones, into all those little cracks and crevices. So as we go through here, if you guys see any like bald spots or, just things that desperately need touch up, I touched up everything I could at the very, very end off camera, but whoa, what washed the camera out, I have no idea. But yeah, it was definitely a bad call on my part. I should have went ahead and taken the head off, but I didn't. But oh well. And after the Suguru stuff, I didn't want to risk putting the thing in water to heat it up, so yeah, I just dealt with it. His suit is a lot more neon blue, which by the way, it took several coats to get the green opaque, and it's still not opaque. I still had to put another coat on after this. I have to use several coats to get the stuff opaque and not as streaky looking. But anyway, I didn't have quite the right neon color, so what I tried to do is take my lighter blue and mix a little bit of my darker blue in it. And I thought it looked okay at first. You'll see I went ahead and painted all of his suit blue on it, but later on I did change it and mix it up a little bit better to make the color more accurate to the picture. But yeah, so, and let's see if I can actually remember to close the lid on this thing like I didn't do before. But spoiler, I did remember to put the lid on it this time. Actually, on camera, the color looks kind of perfect, but I promise you it wasn't looking that perfect in real life. But yeah, I actually did do 2 coats of this color, I believe, and it wasn't until really at the very end that I decided to change it. So you see this color throughout a lot of the video. Next came painting the ketchup and mustard guns and the packets on his arm. Now you'll see here my red paint has very deeply watered in time, and because it's rubber, the Subaru does not want to take color that easily. If you paint on a thicker kind of paint, it'll go on rather easily. But since my red is so thin, it took several layers. Like you can see, it's already starting to separate. But the more you do it, the more the paint will catch itself and create texture. And I am completely turned away from the camera, but it will layer up eventually. No joke, it takes about 10 plus coats to do it though. And the same was said for the packets on his arm. It was a little bit better there because there's more texture to them, but not as much. And the opposite side of his arm, they're white in the picture. I think the red packets are supposed to be hot sauce, and then the white packets are supposed to be mayonnaise. I don't know, but I just went based off the picture. So the ones on the opposite side of the page aren't yellow to match the mustard gun is what I'm saying. So yeah. Yes, the clay I used for the tanks were already white, but they were also very dirty. Polymer clay gets so dusty and dirty when you're working with it, it's unbelievable. And you can take it off with alcohol or even sand it down after it's done. But I'm like, I'll just paint it anyway. So I painted over that, and I went ahead and painted over the packets on his arm, the white ones, and I also painted over his boots and gloves. Now, my white paint has had I've said this before, my white paint is the opposite of my red. It's thickened in time to the point where I really desperately need to get a new bottle because this stuff is so crappy right now. Like if you looked up real close to the hands, which I haven't done it here yet, but they look terrible on this pop. Next time I go out for craft supplies, I'm really going to just go ahead and just chunk this bottle of white and get a new one because this one was really horrible, and it took a while to get it looking somewhat even. But yeah, I did go ahead and repaint everything that needs to be white. But with the smallest tipped brush I owned then, I actually bought a smaller one since, I painted on his underwear. Yes, he actually does put on his underwear outside of his tights, like his actual underwear, and it's kind of hilarious. Next, I take my gray paint and paint these straps on the tank. This is probably the one that took the least amount of time to do because it was pretty much opaque after one layer, but I went ahead and did 2 just for good measure and to correct some mistakes on the way. But yeah, this one was actually the easiest to paint of all of it. Then I took my dotting tool and made the marks on his, like the thread of his briefs for his underwear, and then after that I took my black paint and made the waistband for the underwear as well. After I painted that band, I took my black and mixed it into that blue color I mixed before. Because if you look at the reference picture I printed off, the tubing that connects the tank to the squirt guns is actually like, they're gray, but they have a blue tint to them. So I just decided to put my black paint in with that blue to make a really dark blue. Like a grayish blue. But this was also the point where I was like, yeah, the color of the suit needs to change, so I was just going to mix up another paint color for the suit anyway, so I just used the blue I already had made to create this new, again, bluish gray color. And as I was putting it on the tubing, yeah, my black kind of exploded, I forgot about that. But it had the same problem as the red. it really exploded. I had the same problem with the red, where it just kind of spread. So that one, as well as the ketchup parts, did take a little bit longer to paint, but it still looked good in the end. Looking at the footage of me painting it, I didn't even think of it, but it almost looks more like a snake than a tube right now, doesn't it? With it spreading out like that, it looks like some kind of weird python, but it looks good in the end, I promise. So evidently I changed the color of the suit off camera. I didn't remember doing that, but I just took the darker blue color and mixed it with a little bit of white to make a more... Yeah, this one looks wrong on camera, but I promise you in person it's the opposite. And yeah, you can see another pop I was working on at the time, the Valkyrie metallic one. Did not film that. But anyway, it's just there. I was working on them both at the same time. But anyway, I started working on the Insignia by using my dotting tool to create a white circle, just to lay down, a silhouette of what needs to be painted on afterwards. Now the black part of his logo, I could have just put it on, but then there's a little yellow and red lightning strikes for some reason that comes out of the logo. I don't know, but that definitely had to be painted white, so I just went ahead and made the entire silhouette white before painting the actual color on. I added the red and the yellow first before going in with the black for the logo part, and I did wait for the red and yellow to dry before finishing up with the logo. And while I had the black paint out, I went ahead and did the stripes on the side of his mask just to create those little grooves, I guess it was supposed to be, for the pickle, and I used my dotting tool for that, you can see here. Just very, very small lines all around the mask. Again, I think they're supposed to replicate the grooves of a pickle. I'm not really sure. I'm just following what I saw on the picture, so yeah. And I also made like a little X in the grooves at the very top of the stem. Finally, to finish off the pop, I put the C logo inside of the black, and I actually did end up pretty much making a white circle and then making the white outline for this, or the black outline inside of the C for it, just to make it distinct. I know my thumb's covering it up, I'm sorry, but yeah, after that dried, I went ahead and put 2 coats of my sealant on there, which is just matte Mod, or sorry, is it matte? Yeah, matte Mod Podge mixed with water, just to cut it down to make it more matte, and I put 2 layers over the entire pop. And then finally, here we have the Condiment King with his glasses attached. All it was a little bit dab of super glue on there, just to attach the sunglasses on there. And I honestly think this looks pretty darn good. Obviously, if you're not someone who's into DC Comics, you do not care the least about this pop. And probably if you're into DC Comics, you don't really care about this pop. But I don't know why, the idea just came into my head, and I'm like, I can make that into a pop. So I actually ordered that DIY pop just for this custom. So I hope you guys enjoyed it for the most part. I mean, again, I know it's not that interesting with a character that's like a nobody, but again, he's like comic relief, so it's kind of funny to me. So I enjoyed making it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching it. And y'all got 3 months in a row where it was Funko Pop related for the custom videos. I made a pop out of clay, I glittered a pop, and made it glow in the dark, and now I'm repainting a pop. So guess what? Next month, not a Funko Pop video. So I'm sorry for everyone who loves the Funko Pop videos, but gotta take a break from it every now and then. So anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and remember, like always, it's a community, not competition, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.